Will Hedera Hashgraph have a better 2024 than it has the last couple of years? What are my price predictions for HBAR? That's the kind of stuff we're going to talk about today. Welcome back to the Block Hash Podcast channel. Today, we're going to do a little bit of chart analysis on Hedera Hashgraph HBAR, something that most of you are probably very interested in and have been following for a long time. Again, Hedera is something that is absent in terms of being compared to other blockchains. It is not a blockchain. It is a hash graph. So it has different functionalities, different purposes, and different things working for it. And they are a fantastic project. We've interviewed them on the podcast. Lehman Baird, he's a very intelligent guy, very thoughtful, very transparent and honest. And they have a tremendous ecosystem that's growing very rapidly and locking in a lot of TVL. I think they're going to be a very popular project that people will continue to look for in the near future when they want something that can compete against blockchain as an alternative, as a hedge, is something that's also effective that isn't blockchain. I think they have a really strong use case. So I'm going to dive into the prices here. I'm going to give you my short-term and my long-term prediction, and I'm going to, jot this up and give you some ideas of where the floors and ceilings are. So make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into this. All right, so this is back out onto the weekly. Obviously, Hedera, like everything else in the market, has completely tanked back in 2022. Went through a long and annoying bear market, especially for Hedera, where there was very little movement. All right, back in January of last year, if you remember, we saw a little bit of pop for about a month and a half. It got almost as high as 10 cents and then collapsed. And then as we got to October, like most of the crypto market, around mid of October, we're able to see a breakout start happening. We got out of this awkward wedge pattern, and we were able to start making our way up over the next couple months from there to a high of about 14 cents. Right now it's sitting at around 11 cents. So I'm going to say more between 10 and 14 in a pretty good spot where it's starting to actually break out. Something that could be comparable to what we've seen earlier in HBAR. It doesn't have the longest chart history, but going back to 2020, we can kind of see a little bit of some of these breakouts and how long it takes before it moves. So looking at this, I want to see if I can move sideways for you with a date range. So from first breakout in February of 2020 to hysteria, FOMO, it took about 322 days, almost a year. All right. That's a long time. Now, is that going to be the same situation here? Who knows? We could say this was the breakout pattern. We could say February 2023 to February 2023. Almost. I'm going to say close to March 11th. 399 days. There's some similarity there in terms of maybe that being a breakout pattern, maybe this being the beginning of a super cycle. HBAR has obviously been worth quite a fair bit for an altcoin. It's gotten as high as 58 cents on one occasion, normalizing around 43 cents and kind of bottoming around the 20-cent range, 15 to 20-cent range. So it's good to see that we tested this. I'm going to draw a line so you can see this a bit more clearly. But from our new high to former lows, we tapped on this first leg down. So back in, let's say, June 2021, we had a floor start to form in the price for HBAR. That floor seems to be its first ceiling in this wave upwards, which is a good sign. So we know where the ceiling is in its short chart history, and we know that it needs to get through that. It seems to want to because it pulled back a good 3 cents. Now, looking above that, let's say we get through 14 cents with relative ease. We're probably looking at a little bit of resistance. Let's see. Here around 16 cents. Probably looking at some resistance here around. Good question. 18 cents. We get through these areas. I think we're likely to be good, but I imagine these being the choppy spots. HBAR can definitely continue its march upwards, where It could go sideways, come up into here, go sideways, and then break out towards the end of the year. That's a possibility. Another possibility, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. This is on the weekly too. I'm going to go to the daily, give you a little bit more of a picture. So in the short term, this is my prediction, we're probably going to come back up and test this again. Why am I going backwards in time? We can't go backwards in time. We'll go up and test this probably, maybe shop around some more, break through it. We can get to this upper level. We'll probably shop around a little bit more. So I think sometime, by the time we get to summer, I wouldn't be surprised to see HBAR test 18 to 19 cents. That seems very reasonable, assuming this trend continues. The reason I think this trend can continue is the patterns that you can see. All right. I always look for funnels. There's some type of funnel pattern happening here with HBAR. This one actually you could draw back to here. Maybe it'll look a little bit more clear. Yeah, it looks a bit better. Yeah, more or less. So we could adjust this and say it could come down a little bit more, but this seems to be the overall direction ever since we got out of the fall. It wants to move in this direction. So if we hold this pattern, maybe we can break out sometime late April, later this spring, find our way to 18 or 20 cents. And then maybe we hover here for a while. And then by the time we get into the fall, maybe that's when we make the big move to the upside. Again, I'm being very conservative with this because I have no idea where it's likely to go. I just want to see, if it can sustain it. So we back out onto the weekly again. So I want to look at things in larger chunk moves. The RSI is overbought. All right. It's not like badly overbought, but it's overbought. It's been overbought twice now in the last 4 months. So this is definitely due to correct a little bit, or at least march sideways. It doesn't have to correct, it just has to cool off. All right. I'm going to go for the cool off stage. But that's what the RSI is pointing to. We need to keep that in mind. So it's not likely it's just going to explode out of nowhere. Got to be pragmatic about things. MACD, same thing. It's clearly above its moving average, above the volume bars, moving in the right direction. Again, something to keep in mind. Bollinger Band, it's cracking through. Bollinger Band's better on a short time frame if you want to trade. Not recommending it on a long-term time frame. Personally, it's above all its moving averages. It seems to be above its 200-day. I don't see any real issue here. It's back testing it a little bit. It looks like it might be holding it on the daily when we zoom in. So all looking pretty good. Historically, that's what you want to see. You want to see HBAR hover above that moving average of the 20, 50, 100. And I guess in this case 200, but the 50, the 20, the 50, and the 100, more or less, you want to see it hover above, and it's just starting to do that now for the first time. So it makes me think that maybe we're somewhere in here, probably making our way towards that big pop. But I don't know. We got to see this move play out, because this could be the parabolic stage, or it could be the beginning of that stage, in which we might need to wait a whole nother year. Who knows? So we're rooting for the former over the latter to essentially get there. So that's what we're looking at right now with HBAR in the short term. I think 18 to 20 cents by the time we get to this summer is reasonable. Now, getting into long-term stuff, this is going to be very rough, so don't take it. Just take it with a grain of rice. But 42 cents, how do we get back to that high? It's not impossible. It just takes volume. It just takes people putting their money into the system, into HBAR, into its ecosystem. So to get to 43, our relative high from before, we need to, let's say from 11 cents up, we need to go about 290%. That's about a 32-cent move. Right now, we're moving in increments of a penny, maybe 2 pennies. So we don't have the volume coming in yet. Okay. We don't have the spread expanding to the point where we're going to get 290% bounce. Now, again, this is crypto. It could happen out of nowhere. But I think we have a lot of time and a lot of open air before we get to that point. There's a couple of areas of resistance, some floors and ceilings that we need to flip, but not of any relative strength. Maybe one here around 27, 28-ish, but most of it is open air. So let's see what happens. I think HBAR could potentially get to 43 cents by the end of 2024. If it's going to happen sooner, then something needs to break out soon because the volume just isn't there yet. I think it'll come. It's just not at the point where we're seeing HBAR go ballistic. We're seeing big stepping stone moves, and I like that. That's good. That's healthy. That's where we want to get to. And right now we want it to back test the 9 to 10 cent area that we had a hard time getting through at least twice. You could even argue this was a chance to come up as well. But this area has been really difficult. So if we can back test this 9 to 10 cent range, which it looks like we're doing, we're back to 11 cents. Maybe that's a sign we need that we're going to keep going up. So if we're able to get to these higher levels in the short term, I'm more optimistic we can get to 43 cents by the end of the year. If we don't, it's going to be a little bit more drawn out, or maybe we have to wait for a massive catalyst to actually get us there. Maybe it's an election cycle. Maybe it's another SEC failure in the market. Maybe it's crypto legislation. Who knows? So that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, give me your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you guys think about HBAR and Hedera hash graph. Things happening in the ecosystem as well as the price charts. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Cheers.